talingim oh you tarawra wal balula lembalti karin el malak karang aramata arangalage balwa madabe
Malung total mera adar belau Lorenzo tial programmer al tutau kada mereka sulu nosimil guk tunine orang semua masa edel guk madenge bebira urol gora recentera urol lebentia partnership tira outside ma era domu ilak mal dersia magal del susil mera rugul mutling belau rugul belau ngara ul bir belau marugul mutling egal state Komal masaura gal omel kiu ma unus mil girela gal lurere del dorura al girela osebaklela adabela bulwat alo aise en sogalmo odio aisa agora tablo announcement tra do program rigid melal time sel el clay wangadra sel clay wangadra el girela argentine calendar amla mga asmeril mensibirangal kal submit taigel atsatil mera agora center ol mura gel skulir tia mangsimra lu etiul gobsingila elangula onge del buil March 29 en close day program sel wal dai malimentaitor taigel atsentai la calendar el arak se amina next year 2025 awase exploring our sanctuary se awal dimsel el next year atsentai calendar tial di makorawal lo makat tiagi de klaiwad el mortial Palau National Marine Sanctuary tial eotelela aklingila de belbelau se agot announcement se longeru announcement se el all time agora center a osigra atal adol mo auror sel communication and outreach officer se amo title ring mo subes walterula da siol a imong amor sel communication and outreach officer imong social science researcher kumakalom sa legal luroras el del matigil el website tra agora center alwaise la tutang mal lungilar google el ngatiang makmosyoga era trigal el guest ladra Stanford University ngaria ngale Brendan McCOY Ngal Brendan McCOY tirgam lama keltok tangatir tamlam umregra keltok tangatir el altame torora university ogore ngal gukara tel bital saidra gal KAIKU nga buigra Hawaii ngal elanga mala segid keltok tangani tiagid Stanford University tial Stanford University angania sel lab malu bengorabli aigel goma kalom subela rwa tokora wamran mara anderengel o trigal ada tegi de lab amlamo ewidrak lamo medel 7 years lo mais el merbelau el trail gora musubula sei aigal marand el masisi raklal aigang ngarakas klel belau mong temla aigal morgol ewidrak el lo mais el meloror etemla ngarang ayang el melmera aigal dulu albab oror sia aknula basel blal gaberi matemora tara basel ko chega gigi del marand lo mdasom sisi raklal del way segi del rura tegi del bela abela ngarang ayang al mora blileu malwai se bai gu mul gora olingit tir mul bolo o ay seguida gel gora atlang tingil tialure rira gira toira ay gel marand del sisi ra aklal okay. I know you don't understand what I was saying, but I just follow the program. So, Brendan, would you want to tell us a little bit about the background of the project?
Yeah, so we're interested in basically looking across the entire island of Palau to find reefs where we can expect to find more bleaching-resistant corals than we would otherwise expect just from surveying the population. So we're really interested in identifying bleaching resistance and why they're bleaching resistant.
And that's for the last 7 years since you've been coming back and forth. That's what you've been trying to do.
Yeah, we've basically been trying to make a map of bleaching resistance.
I see. Oh, and Gaila Brandon lo ay sila say ay gal morgole with the rock. ito mais ngara university tira amrige leo mais me raigal mo le widerak il tral identify malibe tosi gagel basela sei gasklela gal tal kerger bela rogit angari gigi del laseng مران المسيسي رقلال سلبول لورال مربع بقلل دليل هذا انديق لولاق وانديق المعب سيجي يقول تتللا وريريل very interesting and when you say heat tolerant coral what are they and why do we need to why is it important to identify them?
Yeah, so globally it's become a problem that coral reefs are bleaching, and what bleaching actually is the coral animal has formed an association with a little microscopic plant, more or less, and they usually get along, but when the temperature rises, they don't. And the coral and the microscopic algae separate, and that usually leads to the death of the coral animal. And that's a huge problem because the coral is the actual structure and place where lots of other things that live on the reef actually live. And so it's actually creating the structure for everything else that lives there. So when it dies, everything about that reef also dies with it.
I see.
Yeah.
Oy, aquara dil gelo sengara ul mo club tutrel bodo dengi gal marande, ngagi da brandon lo lo asi. Ngegi del arm ket yal marande. Ngal marande do mes ringin ngara kargel korap gir ra al mam krama ma ko di mga bibiop ma bek puding la tetela marande. Ngaria arm ket segi del el marande. Dia al necesio sen kira al sel. Mbay ket yal budel. سلورا لما أقلال المرال مولمو أقلال دليل أضاب المرال مولمو مغال إنجي جد الأرما أمودياق الغار إنجيل مرال مسلورا إن إيرك إجي دا مؤمس سيجد المال دي بإليلو سلوان إيو سلا مرال إلان جي جد الأرما أكير سلبوديلا مرال إغوري إمغان إمي إسل إي إجي جد الديل أوالو ميو برنغال مرال دي منغلورين مسلورا المولمو مغال داو من إيسين جيد الأرم إن يادي ممضي السيجيد الإيوسلا مران دي كده أمورا غرغيري مسال دي بإلي لوكتيا المران سيجيد الإلان أوال لقال سبئل موت المرال مقلو ملا ماذا نجيل مران إن قال جيد الدريق الملغولة سأقول مقلو تتريل دو سوبا جاجيد الكليل دليل جاجيد المغال المران أمين أخيام كليل دليل أضاو بولش إذر صوب لا يجيل بولش إذر متيج إذر صوب لا يجيل مسيسير أقلال المران angil because enggal maranda kluk tu telel sel langar engwal diregel betok aklangal lultuy ni malsumong madengel maranda egel klangar el ngara maori enggal maranda diregel musin din wal mad malbe modiak ba kluk tu telel do kluk tu telel do wala samlo siklo lela and so far I believe you have Sorry. I must have skipped the. Can you talk about a little bit? We covered this one. Sorry, I must have missed the. Why did you decide to come to Palau? Why Palau? Can't you work in the Caribbean or?
Well, Palau's structure for marine protected areas is one of the best in the world, and it serves as a role model to many other nations, especially those in the Pacific, where Palauans have been doing very well with protecting their resources. And like you just said, coral reefs are one of the best resources for Palau to protect because they provide a huge source of biodiverse, economic, and ecologic importance. And so it's really important that everybody in Palau knows how important this resource is, but also align with the idea that it's a resource that needs to be protected.
Ngayon da kay gul mulko la siya tamle decide meurora blur belau letial belau diregal korawa bolu ngilar ngude isel direng sa to diregal wabol goras misi arngud el magal mo babla kadeng lo sei tial bolwa da potol bolwa blu ada walo mesringil waseng ngobam sisi il blak reng il trail mokut jal debil wal gora madenge blura ada sia maul mesel Stanford University adi lu asay me bodoro belau Ay gidel koram sisi il udul girela mot maklela osob aklela karger ma almol ma un mutamle decide la sei bedorur belau indi gumdaswen I believe Palau, as our conversation before, one of you mentioned that because Palau, even though there's been like so much bleaching around the world, and somehow Palau never really got affected, you know. The only big events that I remember was the 1998 bleaching.
Right.
And that was, I don't have the figures, but I believe it was about close to like 60 or so, more than 50% of the corals around Palau bleached. So you want to tell us a little bit about why the corals in Palau are somehow can kind of get away with so much bleaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So why are the corals here in Palau healthier than many other places in the world? One reason might be that historically Palau has taken care of its oceans. So it's not doing too much overfishing. Palauans have not been polluting their reefs as much. But also there's a whole second set of reasons, which are for some reason, these particular strains of corals here seem to be genetically more resistant. So there's something going on inside the coral that we're trying to figure out. Is it their genetics of heat tolerance? Is it that the rock islands, Palau's beautiful rock islands, are casting shade over certain corals and helping them? So this is what we're trying to untangle through our work.
Ngoi se agi koram ni ado duro agi meter radio show etimlo o aisla se atara one of the reason they wanted to study Palau atara ulit temlo salil memsu gal coral sa blur belau ngaria maklo le dula sen coral bleaching se le dula se coral bleaching ang malak gal marandra blur blulat etial belau abl oil klolo malakwa lo mlakwela marandam lari sa 1998 ngok medlo kom le basentra amarandra blur bela malakul dimlo belele pluseng mlak indi isegidra 98 melang ngariya bebira omlakwela marandam ladu al maleliwekra apa Pacific ya bela ko radal sal malmo oklo matamal al marandrin seguida direct taraul betrigal ada STANDFORD ang namo 7 years lo may silmay asoril mel musubula say ngaraw ulmay gal marandra blur bela dirgal kora wal misisi sisi irtiagi del kora tokora sing malakwa marandra kay makmadr lang bigos lang kleldre na daw ul ya bela de al salmat mal ngayida godim lo ais la say ngora nga bebira urisa la say la say kada magtatal kora awada kirgi kirtial debet mong gorawal lungilak lang ay galmarand healthy galmarand ya o sisil time eto asay seguida tara akloluul motomay silmel me goram subertial ay galmarand rablu abulwat leto aseng soril mutil mal motmol om subilo asay ngaraw ul may galmaranda ama amoringa maklol gora omalak malubang omalkwela marand rablulat ay galmarand de bela de alsal malak de al kay makmat siya tarah malu ule etangara abulwad al masub mungwal sa bedro say tamsubay gel dia kamal tinga da belal girat genetik bagadik mula say tamsubay gel rsael amrand walo suber seguido la singal genetir ngal marand ngara ulma marand rablul ada malak ko takay makmada marand beladia siya tarah maklol tetelo umsubin belal time et walo o may sa tsaka yidel basyo ola ba gay del marand del memt mutlo gora motmol om subil girel. So can somebody tell us about how many sites are there in across Palau that you guys are looking at?
Yeah, so I'll introduce sort of what we've done, and then I'll let KAIKU and Cody describe what we're doing now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the project initially began with 40 reefs across Palau, basically from Kayangal down to Koror. And our goal was in those 40 reefs to find 10 corals that we would then sample and bring back and then heat stress them. And so we basically bring them back here, expose them to high temperatures, and then ask if they bleach or not. And so that whole project was a few years long, and we basically found that there are hot spots across Palau where we tend to find more corals that are heat resistant than others. And so those places are places like Imalik State, We found some in Triangle, and there are a few in Koror. But the other hopeful thing we found is that basically every reef had at least a few individuals who were bleaching resistant, even if the reef itself wasn't a highly concentrated area of bleaching resistance. Which means that basically if any reef heats up, there are at least a few individuals that are likely to survive that, which we take as a hopeful and good sign. And so from that, we've expanded out, and that's what KAIKU's project is, and that's what Cody's project is.
Okay. Ngariak med local, and you're saying those 40 sites were like identified in the initial,
Right.
during the beginning of the program for the last 7 years project.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, ela sel selongo do Brendan ang wasay sera ewidra kama mema lomu tagid lurol me gora osiga giden marand etemle gorem lot maut til survey akmed local site ay gal local site tangarang ayang al mera tel drul al babra blur orior ya gagid local site sera lo rul omsublo siga gagid etingila gora abebira sampol ay gal marande el mal mera tiale gora Vicente ogore malo turatang ogore oringlia klel del tial da ralm wal gora increase the temperature tial double gal maranda alsel maigel wala kalsbel agel wala kalsbel lotgur tial klel del la da ba kay makmad inga mo mode la igel igel mo mode dimla kalmat ayge abolo dengelo asay ay gagid el maranda msisi iraklal klel del la da mela gagid el maranda of course etme asay ngal maranda ngilurger ngagid el guk sampor ngagid el guk sampor maranda ngilurger mela ngabla bolo denge gagid el wal site tenamo denge la say ngarger mger ngari gel msisi el maranda el tugura angarbab klel del la da atara ba bebira baselo logo ba Brenda ngari basel ngarang angal angaray melig anything from the southern lagoon.
A lot in Koror, like near Oolong.
Oh, yeah, but talk right gagid el marand el sebello tugura angarbab klel del la da ngartia lulong ngarama orit tial gergera ulong ela segit selo msubul من start tra ewi dra la memong matam lamel wal identify gagid el for el site identify el marand aprenda na direk el molgo lo asay even at tial gerger bela you said even the reef in Palau when there's some sort of bleaching going on some corals in the non-project site still don't bleach.
Correct. Yeah.
O in kaida aprender lo así. Madire ka taldi gerger belo ay gel dira kal surbel el basio. Adire kal ngaria bebira marand ngaringi sel lolaqwa marand seguid el basio. Enya adire kal dia al mad. Mung sedelo mesni así. So what you're saying is pretty much the reefs around Palau beside your sites have some heat-tolerant corals somewhere.
Yeah, based on those results, that's what we would expect.
Oh, gagid lo asen base gagid lo result lo sampol memotmok ito aseng ngari agel basyon paklo gagid de almatamal hindi basically tial gerger bela rogi ngania sebel mitu tra maranda mong malak kundi ngari agel destal mitu traklal mong malak kundi ngari agel destal maranda direk diakal logi way gagid el otsusi malubeng result trawrerit etanamo modengel asay tial gerger bela abebira basyo maklo gagid way awlo maklo gagid msisi raklal del maranda ya abebira basyo aku kwadi destang mong yak desal modengel asay would that be connected to like a water movement, like the warm water will come? The reason why a bunch of corals in Oolong doesn't bleach is because every time the water temperature comes up, this heated water will not pass through this area, or.
That's exactly right.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hindi akakwala dilger selger lekwasay. Ngaraw ulma bebira basyo, diakal salmat, ya bebira. Etirga idil dirgal mulgo say oy atlang tingira weri dirgal lo mes tiar kel de la magal del dawla say metiang maral more. Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So you're not only looking at heat tolerance through the genetic what you also look at the whole aspect of the water depth
Yep.
Current movement.
Correct. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, Cody or KAIKU, you want to tell us add to what Brandon was mentioning?
Yeah, so what Brendan was talking about was that we're finding these heat-resistant individuals in every reef. When a heat wave comes in, we can expect some of those to survive and repopulate that reef. What I'm interested is the genetic underlying of it all, which means that what makes those individuals heat-tolerant and survive climate change? What aspect of their genetics are allowing them to basically survive? And that's a very complicated question to ask, but what we can do is use our heat stress experiments to heat them up, figure out which corals are dying very early and which ones are surviving a lot more, and then we can make comparisons in the genes to try and figure out what genes are causing corals to survive climate change.
Okay. Okay, ila seguida umsubela aga KAIKU wase oy ngari gigi del dial matmal dial olak malubeng madra klal del marand ay gigi dal ngalme emsub sel wal resel sel genetic ngi sel resel ngal marand la sei ngraw ulma sel lorala klel del la dab maral morbab ya bebi ramran damre del math ya bebi la meu del math mela sel guklum subela KAIKU la ngasi غراق لقاق روس رايقارس إلى قال مرand ما بيبي لا وال مريء الماض يا بيبي لا مميوذ الماض. I just kind of sum up what you just tell me. Basically, you wanted to learn the genetic of the corals on why some corals can easily bleach while others can continue to survive. Very interesting, KAIKU.
Well, Asip, I love what you said about the currents. Where do they carry the hot water? So one of our goals is use Palau to understand how factors like the current, the depth of the coral, how much light is blasting the coral. Here in Palau, how do those factors correlate with the super reefs, the really tough reefs that survive through the warming waters? And then from Palau can teach the rest of the world. Okay, take a look at your currents, your light, your depth. We can start to predict where will tough reefs be elsewhere as well.
Tial toira omulukwel amran malubeng silolok amran del momat lultur tiakil del adab diakal sada diakal salwa sekre di amran del maseo mungulo del bir tial tangke mua aklel del tiaral mil mira bakar de domesa seng madan diak tia involve bato kol kakaros ngagida ko din mulko la sei diregal involve bar korar wak current selora la dab mum kayal dagal current tumara omrolel diregal involve bar korar rula dab le tial rula dab diregal sel korawal wal kora momu ba marand buto ka gigil mgegrel tingil tialom subir mong ngagida ko din mulko la sei hopefully ngoguk tagidil kora omrolam el may gal korom subam en mosib edel mom tingil la sei sel su gal marand rebelaw unmum sisi ay gagid unmum sisi en gagidil ay la sei esb edel lo spe gagidil ko information el guk kwada share el mora kora neighboring lecture wayap FSM lo hace okay kami mo mesagi de tora Berius patora kel de la dab ma tora ngrang gel blal bitikira tara to ngwa do uspet tegi del otsusira subir el al gire gal tora marand rabnu belaw el gora qola lo lonsio gel gora amaori gidel blu mo mosibil dire el gora wal sabaq la gel el marand qablurir sel sugum tiakel de la dab amral murbab seguida lo goria qodim mal interesting when it comes to heat-tolerant coral, when it comes to seawater temperature, coral bleaching, people tend to think, because the water was really hot, the temperature came too hot, so the corals died, which is true. But it's not only that. There's a lot of factors involved in that. That's what I just told translate all this information to the... And those are the things that we need to understand more and more. The more we have a good understanding, the more we can try to, kind of work with it or manage our coral reef so that they won't. That's very interesting, Godi. So you want to tell us about, I believe you've been working with one species of coral called the tabletop or the hyacinthus. You want to talk a bit about that, the work you're doing at the center, so at least people will know.
Sure, yeah. So our initial study was on the tabletop coral, which everybody probably knows if you've been on the reefs. They're the big ones that look like a plate that's sort of a horizontal plate. And what we're interested now in is figuring out if the results from that one species tell us something about the other species that are on that reef. So we're expanding out from that one species to ask about several others so that we can be sure that when we say that a reef is bleaching resistant, it's bleaching resistant for all the species that live on that reef, not just that one. And so what we're really focused on now is trying to expand our work to be able to know more about the different species that are on a single reef and whether or not they're going to be bleaching resistant as well.
So, in other words, initially you were working on the tabletop coral.
Yeah.
And now you wanted to expand that work to the adjacent corals or the corals nearby to see if there's a relationship between the heat resistant.
Correct.
Okay. Oy, mangagida Brendan lo ay sila say siral ko tlam uloror hindi mlewan ni gele maranda alulus penin korawa lo souvenir sengam sisira klal nyak. Engel maranda ay gele maldak sal medina klit toro bela un disel el baby ratta me daba argele dol bakle engaria baby ramran del qoradi el adal el merbab overberg mut adra barda qoradik mu un table tap len qora table maldi imol el adal merbab flat el bebul جيد المران دالو سبينير وا برندن القرا امرو تجيد لهم سوبيل جيلا اجل المران دل مسيسي الاقل دل لا يو غوري لا الاورال ملمي استمول ممتيغ لا سي نديال سي الوادي دو سوبن قال مران اذا دول سي اوي تجيد غاجيد المران مسيسي اقلال تدري لا سي يا قال غربي الثاني غرا اول ما قال غربي الثاني ما دين غادي على الماض الا سيدا دير السوريل مسوبرين قرا قانك تسي ngal tabletop maranda ngarang aringil los peringi el sebel gora smisi malu ngara ul magal bitania ma denga de almad ela seguida los subrinil tral mo asei kada magarang erulit tayid el telgib el bashiol ngari gayid el tabletop المهم سيسي روغير مسد راسي تجد الغرغير ام سيسي الاقلال امرال ني روغول مران راسي الغرغير ام سيسي الاقلال سي غورا تراتنتي لا ورول رابع برندن امروني. And so, you were saying, right? Initially, you work with the tabletop, and now you're planning to expand to the. Can you explain it again?
Yeah. So everything we looked at first was just the tabletop, but if you go to a reef, there's not just tabletop corals. You'll find corals that look like. Branching staghorn corals. You'll find the massive corals that are really slow growing. You'll find ones with little fingers coming up. And so we're just interested in all of those different kinds of corals and whether or not they tell us the same story when we heat them up or when we go to a reef.
I think my interpretation was a bit off.
Oh, was it?
One way we can think about it is like coral reefs are kind of like a forest where there's like tall trees and there's like small shrubs and different trees, but they all respond to climate change and sea surface temperatures differently. For the example of coral reefs, your tabletops are your most beautiful, but they're also more susceptible to the warming. They bleach very easily.
Yes, yeah.
But you have other ones like the mounding ones that just look like rocks, but they're actually alive, and they're very heat resistant. They're able to survive those temperatures a lot more. And so understanding how those different species within a reef are reacting to climate change, I think, is the key here. Like, is it just one species is resistant at this reef, or are all of them resistant? Yeah.
I see. Musawla ko di Brendan. Halaklut loidi sel tia dala Brendan ng letelgib gora auli tesel lomsoder ngak. Tawaset tulmu loro lo bengalegal tabletop ayidol gora table maranda. Hindi temol momti wasi. Hindi kal sal sa edel dim subur ngaygid letial gergela ngania ptokol karo sa bengala maranda. Mengira del wabo do denge ndire gal wad expand tial uror wad gilungi tial uror mo dakadi do mes ngaygid el tabletop. Kadmo o mes agel bebi maranda. Meng moringa ngil cloud ngergid wasi ngaraniam sisira klal ma adiak مثل لوري التايم دول ستجد المرضى تجد الباسيوم سيسيرا أقلال إن مرال سبعة الواب لا دوي سجد المرضى مقدميك بوم سيسيرا أقلال قاعد أقول الجوكملو دو إلا قلتين على برندن الواسين نسأل لو مسينا ستيال غرغرة قراوال أوريوم غنيا تونق الغرغار أقرا دي ماي بيبيو بالغرغار أقرا تلتلا كريسماس تري الغرغار قاقروس الغرغار يا جايد القاقروس الغرغار أروغويل الوال القاقروس أقلسيل جيرة لك أطورا أقلال malol ko niya say umgo ko mo mudnge gayid el klise ela gayid el qaqros el gargar malube tungul me gargar gayid el qaqros el brand en mo sebed el wado dulo say oy gayid el brand am sisi iraqlal al ngarte gayid el basio lem la momrega sube la debel tial basio ma adel el marogui say alul logorin el block tgib el qura offri yeah I think it's clear now I just kind of restate my explanation translation because first time I was a bit off. Anyway, let's move on. Can we talk a bit about the generic work you're doing?
Yeah. So without getting too detailed, what I'm really interested in is how you find two partners that get along. And so there's the coral host and then the symbiont. And what we do is when you look at the symbionts, they all look the same under the microscope or to your eyes, right? And so we use the genetics of the symbiont to tell us who's different and by how much. And what we're finding when we look at the host and the symbiont is basically that there are unique, basically everybody has a unique partner that is best for them. And so there's not just one good symbiont or one good host, it's the specific partnership. And that is the unique thing about each one, that it needs to be optimal for each partner, and that differs by each coral, if that makes sense. So like everybody has like the, you know, if you you basically you find your unique partner and they're the best one.
Let me try to ngwase selbol to gay the genetics elagdo rogul mudela say ngania arm el kira maranda gayid el arm selbol dibus enya momud el sel ibus el maranda el dibelelew ela selom sube la Brendan trigal adrir ela omesa say جيد الأرم كيرا مراندا أدي أقضي له سيسير رجول مراندا تنامو متقلو شيء أيمول مراندا إنجل الأرم كيري أقول قاريا أسأل إنجل الأرم كيري أجا أوسيسيل أرم for example أوسيسيل أرم دي سيل تشنة تيجرين شيء كده سأل إنجل الأرم أتلقي بالنوض را إنجل سأل إنجل ترى أرم الكيري إنجل ترى مراندا شيء كده بلا بول بتيجرين لوي شيء for example نوض شيء أوي تسبرا تقول شيء سوزان ديلي جيد الأرم كيرا مراندا نروغويل أرمل سوسان ديلي دي سيل بولو مسا جتشني تكسني اتمام تيغلا سي دي اقدي لو سيسيوا ارسل روغوي غارنيا ابغير را المراندا غير سيل انجل أرمل كابغير را المراندا اتليب النود ارا ارسل انجل أرمل كيرا اماي بيبيو المراندا سيجي لا سوبير من سوريل منوالو مسلا سي غراو اولما جاي يدر الأرمل كين قال مراندا سل دلويل التين غرا أول من سؤال غير قاعد بقير رأى المران ده ديال سؤال غير ويل ديال ده سن ديال لا سؤال وال غرا مال كلور قاعد بقير رأى المران ده ديال توصيل سيل ريليشن شيء غرا أول من قاعد الأرمى السؤال كين قاعد المران ده ديال سؤال ولا السؤال كين قلت تامران قال الأرمى يقول كان قلت تامران ده كلور قاعد المران ده ديال سبيل كين قال شيء غرا it's very interesting Brendan. How the genetic works, you know, because all this time I thought when we say Susan Daly, hey, they're all the same.
Yep.
I didn't know that when it comes to generic, it's really different.
Yeah, it's astounding how diverse they can be. Right. You know, and you just can't see it, but when we see the genetics, it's very clear that they're all different and doing different things.
يا تموس سيد الجينيتيك أول لوت المال مال غما غايل subdido lo sei ngal arma wangarar sel genetic green ela ngara mong sel de medo me sai gal brand ko da sei sel ngal mera gal di hutsul microscope endo si sil ai bibob sen gege del arm to se susandeli sel di do ba madado lo mesri ngo si sil di sel de generic se seguir sel mol subela sel enya mo blok ta ko sei ga ngariya tribu lo modo ringi ma And you were saying some organisms, different generic is studied again. You want to look at the optimal.
Yeah, basically like you just want to find the best partner for you. And the best partner for you might not be the same as the best partner for me.
Right.
Because our genetics are different, or like the partner's genetics are different. And so we're interested in the sort of combination that is optimal for each one.
Okay, sige de blalut other deal was say gigi del arm kira Miranda abl oil insal mo kir sige del Miranda leng mutigri lo seng ngil arngul sel kerni e sige de langa lo mesnia aprende lo seng ra ulmung ngwai sige de tralo sige sel el gora sel wal gora au ulbung ngwai sige al to kaya del Miranda soal keringeng, kaya del Miranda soal keringeng. Sige del ela direk lolas mulgora aking curing. Very interesting, brother. All this time I thought when we say Susan Deli, they're all the same. Yeah.
It would be easier if that were the case.
Yeah, I say. Yeah. Can anybody tell us about the expected outcome, the findings that could influence management of coral reef, or talk about?
Go, Patty.
Yeah, so the findings that we hope to get out of this is identifying those locations where you have a lot of those heat-resistant corals. And it's really important that we identify where they are so that we can put further protections on them from other things like pollution or overfishing, which can be a really big problem for corals. A lot of people might not realize that, but overfishing, when you take out too many fish, those fish will no longer be able to eat all the algae that actually cover the coral, and your coral reef could be at risk for getting smothered by algae. And so although there is a heat aspect in terms of climate change, there are also other factors that we need to consider when protecting coral reefs.
Kasi misala KAIKU, ay sa KAIKU lo say, o egel gora wal expected el kaya gidlom subir selbol merek, en gora wal sebedlo o mes lo say, malo ay say, en makarado sa akra kargir. Ngagi de molko lo say tial klel la dabel di maral monga oy, ngaria ko do siga gilm si ilmran mo sebel lo tugur se klel la dabra o warra kan batad men di almad. Setang. Ya direk ending gagi de molko lo say direk buto gel gukti al sal mat to klal direk tomal la agal brief. Ngagi de molko lo sa direk gukta semal mo abuk tesal mal mo dingro la omudi de madangai gal el ngigel nya direk al gora mai galium de en mobol makasay en sebelang galium del wal kukul san mal mo toy semeng do kita kay gal maranda bang mada maranda mong segi dang molko lo say jagi del el otso sire jagi del subir sebel wabol ngo sugid ra to ra gora osabakela adabel makargera abulwate tara to ulgum ko mo de say jagi del maranda sisi en say do ra gora gergik lemeng dia ka gora a pollution malubeng gora magityong mo tomal lagi gid basyo ngari gid sisi rakla del maranda very interesting. Yeah, you may continue.
Yeah, something else I wanted to point out was that there are a lot of things that you can actually do to support these types of efforts. And it can be very simple, such as visiting the Palau aquarium and getting educated on these types of organisms. But another simple thing you can do is support policies that benefit conservation, like creating more MPAs to protect your resources or supporting research efforts to help you understand your reefs are all things that you can do as a Palauan to support these types of efforts.
Oy, ngaji del lutel mo la tingelo say ndire el sebe del gora kidil di adra blue di adra ngaji del ora gora tora ba marang ase del mo olong sewlogi agora mo mo ngep togol wa gora mutel do ela cloud ngir yidil gira garger mo walo brother mudil gira lo mot mutla garger ye ma adire el sebe del gora ol taw do swed del gira la seng ngil do gora bulwat selul mong tingela KAIKU wal gora di wasay kita bebira togol se der mu el digal gora mos misi ay gidil el gora urol gira osab aklela ngal brand ma garger bulwat.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why do you care about coral reefs? What is important about reefs from your perspective?
Well, I guess my answer would be kind of biased because I about it. But as we all know, not only me, even the Palau fishermen, they know when there's no corals, there's no fish, and that's a traditional knowledge.
Exactly.
And so usually our older generations, every time they go to the reef, they tend to our traditional way of conservation, just get what you need for today because tomorrow is still coming, and stuff like when you go to the reef to go fishing, this is a whole new community. So respect, don't just go over there and kick on the branch, Yeah. Those are sort of traditional, but I guess the reason why I care about the coral reef is the fact that if all the corals are dead, the fish is gone. Yeah. That's basically it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what this makes me think of, everything you just said illustrates Palau's commitment to understanding the ocean and having sustainable practices. When we flew in, you sign a pledge, that says you won't impact the environment. I can't think of another country that has anything like that. I don't
el sel doral me sois blablu belau en gire del luada ngaria babel de san ngira ascochol wasi akmel me milira blur belau el dial gire el malmal langarang mangara tora da ba sum kan kodang abo ngudu brada en gire en dial gire el magrang agodi mul qasendi imol blablu adel sel be de gerdni en wada saing sig del plets sel wal gora atoil wad gora wal gora mitiga girgit sel bedo ilira de belbelaw mong asar malo ngula godira sentital blu ado la seguit o si sil tam ngira al molgo la sei ay gidil mle siungedra ay dal mral melmei a marco tutlel ay gal gora da traditional knowledge oya tora sain sangaring indin dia do bes sel la sei seguid el kila rungud gira belwad ma luben seguid rungude el girela atidal matmal belwad saya makhluk tutril leng mobtoka sains ma omsu mangal morin indil sugo ma ada dialo magreu en aigal wa sains marwa omsu bla olta sengire del magrang al sumen dia do magrege en dia tutril gal omsu ta toka gula semulgonia ala agora sei seguid el carácter gin seguid el berne de la rungud sel بالكلا رمود اللي عصا طبعا الأبلاد سيجي هذا الأمس عملي سيرين هذا استمر استلات يقولوا أسبوع سيجي بالكلا رمود ما بريد الرمود الجيرة لا أصبح كلا بالواد الموضوع على ساينس أقول ده سين مال سين الموضوع مقلاد بلا بلول بلا سيجي قرادي من سؤال ملغورين yeah, I was just telling our audience that science is there, good science is there, but if the character is not there, then local people. If you just don't care about all this science, I don't think we can really achieve anything. Yeah. So my last statement was, we appreciate all this advanced science, telling us more and more about how to take care of this. But at the same time, we need to have that sort of like heavy heart, that hey, I don't want to see, that reef get destroyed, I don't want to see that, damage. Yeah. If we build that character, and use that character with modern science, I think we can really do a lot of great work.
Yes.
And that is exactly why we need more Palauan scientists. We need people with their natural connection to the ocean to be the ones to learn about the reefs a bit more, but also be the one to inform policies and management the best way. Because as a Palauan, and as a scientist, you have a unique perspective on how to best protect your own reefs. Right. And so we need more local leaders to do this type of work.
I'm glad, KAIKU, you mentioned that, because all the past 20 years, we've been struggling to find the local researchers.
Yeah.
Somehow these local kids, they just wanted to be a lawyer and, an educator. So we've been struggling, but you're right. We need to, train more, have more local scientists to. I guess the more people get into it, the more cool stuff can come out of it. And that's something that on our aquarium side we have this project in the communities about coral restoration and all that. That's something that we wanted to transfer, just the aquarium side, not the heavy science like you guys are like. That's science, man.
No, it's all science. It's all science.
I mean,
Science
it's all
science
science, but when it comes to the stuff you're doing, that's wow, Anyway, what we're trying to work with the community with is, basic stuff like, hey, this is how we're going to take care of our reef. Let's restore this reef, and then the more information we got from you guys, from our outside partner to come and tell us what's going on, and that's what we've been. In other words, we're sort of being. I consider our aquarium department as a sort of like a conduit.
Yeah.
Yes.
From hardcore scientists, the detailed scientists, to the, translate into sort of like a community term where, people can understand and adapt, use it on their daily life. So I'm really glad, about this partnership working together, We can always learn more detail stuff like this. It's very interesting. I just learned something today. When you said Susan Deli, I thought they're all the same. I just learned today that the genetics are different.
Oh, yeah.
And we're here to learn is what, that's why we're here. So, yeah.
And so, when we look at the time, it's coming up to 9. And so, do you want to have a final word before we close the program, or just say something before we close? Anything you want to say before we close?
Mahalo and Sulong for letting us work here and help us understanding your reef, and also allowing us to inform you all about corals and what you can do to protect them, because they really are one of your best resources in Palau. And I hope that a lot of local people out there take advantage of that, go explore their reefs, go enjoy their reefs, and most importantly, protect them.
Yeah, likewise, I feel incredibly privileged to be able to work here, and I'm always happy about the partnership that we have with PICRIC, and I just hope we can continue coming back because it's a really special place to work.
Yep. Thank you so much. Palau is incredible for all the reasons you already said. So thank you, Asap, for hosting this wonderful show.
Thank you.
أنا لما شيخ ده مرة بروح program رجيد كذا دينا كل مال بنقص لي تريجيد الحق عشان غير بلا ميم قد تمغل أورور الموسم هذا الغورة تيري تريجيل التغورة أورول نيا عادي أقل سالت مول أقلار غني جيرل أجايد التغورة واتشنتيكس مامراند أجار رجول أورول دوت مقل أمار رجول دي جيرل أقط مقلها بالواض يا بول مذيل إنس إذا الدرس المو والمسيو أجال جوك أماوريرا abelwad aigal bulu ngara maori abelwad mo mal besar rogul mlasumi Lorenz etial programa di mer tia mosimir masel gu mel belsel ko mal bisulang
Talingi oh you Tarawra wal balula lembalti Karin El malak karang aramaka Arang alage Balwa Magabe Klagarage